Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy New Year. This is a special pre-taped episode. It is January 1st, 2024. Going to be a great year for Always Bookin Comedy. Tune in every Monday. We got Trevor Glassman with us today. How you doing, Trevor?
I'm good, man. I'm glad we're pre-recording this because I'd be hungover on New Year's Day. So
Where are you joining us from?
I'm in Tampa, Florida.
Tampa, Florida. Never been to Tampa Bay. Here it's got a big comedy club, and I know Dennis Regan is from there. That's about all I know about Tampa.
Yeah, both true. Dennis is a great guy, and it's not that hot right now. It's like 50, so don't come now, but definitely come when it starts to get cold and you're traveling. Maybe
Oh,
like
okay.
maybe like March. March is a good month.
March is a good month. Okay. All right. Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
So let's rewind. When did you get into comedy and how'd that happen?
I started officially in 2017. I was making videos before then and just going on like Snapchat rants, and people were like, "These are really funny. You should maybe think about trying to be a comedian." And people that don't care about me. And they told me like, look into it, and I always wanted to be a talk show host, so I got in contact with Seth Meyers' mom, who was my French teacher in middle school, and just kind of talked with her a little bit. And she sent me this really long email basically saying, go to Chicago, learn comedy there. That's like what a lot of people do. And I moved to Chicago in 2017, and people were just saying, if you want to be a talk show host, be a stand-up comedian, because if you can do that, hosting a show will seem a little bit easier. And they were right. So I started back then, and since then I lived in Chicago and New York and New Hampshire, and now I've been in Tampa the last 3 years, and it's been a journey so far. But I always just look around at how many people have been doing this for 20, 30 years, and I'm like, I haven't done anything yet.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So was Seth Meyers' mom in entertainment, or is her sole credit having a kid who was very successful in entertainment?
I think she just loved being a French teacher, and Seth would come to our high school every so often, and she loved talking about him. But I think she was just proud of her son.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
So she told you to move to Chicago. You moved to Chicago. You hit a open mic. Like, what was your
yeah.
first experience like?
Oh
Was it
my
in
gosh.
Chicago?
Yeah, I was in Chicago. It was maybe the worst experience ever. I mean, I remember thinking like, what was that when I got off stage? Like, this is what it's like. I wrote this 5-minute monologue on how bad Chicago taxes were and how I couldn't afford food because I had to pay food tax, and made up all these taxes that didn't exist. So I go into this bar on Cleveland Avenue, it was called, in the middle of a snowstorm, and I'm doing stand up for the first time. No microphone, on a soapbox. So I'm just yelling at these drunks at a bar that aren't even listening to me. And I didn't get a single laugh until the end, where I was like, well, thanks for listening. My name's Hiroshima. I just bombed. And then I walked off, and that was the one laugh I got. And I was like, I know that I can do better. It was almost like I kept doing it because it was a challenge. I was like, I can't do this bad. And then
Right.
just kept going up and talking with people. And they were like, why don't you write about things that actually happened to you? And I was like, oh, good point. Instead of making up a fantasy world about how I get taxed for sugar.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So Chicago's a big, scary, crazy place. What did you think of the comedy there?
It was good. And there was a lot of great comedians coming through because I lived across the street from Zany's Comedy Club downtown.
Okay.
And one of the biggest benefits of being in Chicago was getting to watch Chris Rock, getting to watch all these up and coming people for free, just sitting in the back and seeing sometimes people would bomb really bad, and they had been doing it for a long time. And I'm like, oh, well, this just goes to show you, like, any given night, it can just be a train wreck.
Yeah.
And then I've seen certain people where they've destroyed and talk with them after, and they're like, yeah, this is just a culmination of hard work over 10, 12, 15, 20 years. and you learn. Like I remember the first time I saw someone back-to-back nights, they were doing the same jokes, and I was like, why are you doing the same jokes? I didn't even get it. I thought you just
Right.
go up there and be funny. And it was really a learning ground because you talk with people who actually had a comedy background or parents encouraged them. My parents, we grew up in New Hampshire. We had no entertainment. Like we didn't know anything. The first comedy special I saw was Cat Williams. And I thought that they just hired this man off the street and said, go be funny.
Huh.
I'm not realizing for years he's going around the country putting in work, and it was just it was very eye opening on how comedy works in Chicago, and also that there's a legitimate chance that even if you're not famous, you can still make a career out of it.
Huh. Who? Any small names that really crushed? You
Yeah,
want to shout
this.
out?
Well, he was small at the time. Jeff Arcuri was
Oh
there at the
yeah,
time. Now he's huge.
yeah. Was
Um,
he a New York guy back then?
I think he was doing comedy in Chicago, and he had just moved,
Okay.
and then came back. And when he headlined Zanies, I remember watching him being like, "This guy's 29 years old. He's really good. I'm like, he can't be doing it for 20 years, right?" So he did awesome. And there's a guy named Trix who I'm good
Oh,
friends
I know
with.
who that is.
Yeah, he's a monster,
I've
and
seen him. Does he live in Vegas now?
he lives in Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was so good. And the first time I saw him in Chicago, I remember being like, well, I'll never be that funny, but maybe I can get close.
Huh.
And we ended up being friends after the show talking, and he gave me a lot of insight on just the different hoops you have to go through in comedy and how to kind of get good at it. And I'm still working on it, but
What was one? Give us one solid piece of advice from Trix.
he said sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And that can be all the difference. It could be the same line. You just gotta give it to him a little bit differently.
Huh.
And it is a great piece of advice.
Now, like one way I can interpret that is if you use a silly voice, like a funny voice. I've seen that work really well. But does he also mean timing, a cadence?
Yeah. It could be taking a pause, or
Yeah,
it could be upward
reading the
inflection or
audience.
downward inflection, or just saying something under your breath. I mean,
Got it.
there's a lot of different ways to figure out a line, which makes it even harder when you're trying to figure them out. Because you're
Yeah,
like, I know this is funny. It didn't get a laugh. Do I say it different, or do I change the whole thing?
right.
So
Yeah. Okay, so I gotta ask another question.
yeah,
Chris Rock doing Zanies in 2017 seems like he wouldn't be up and coming then. He would have already had a sitcom and have done some pretty big specials.
he was working out new material, and I saw him bomb the worst I've ever seen a comedian bomb.
Yeah.
And I remember leaving being like, this guy's famous. He did so bad. And then I came back that was a Thursday. I came back on a Saturday to watch him,
Uh-huh.
and he did the same set and just lit the room up.
Huh.
And I'm sure it wasn't the exact same. I'm sure he changed some things, but like whatever it may be, I remember just watching and going like, this is someone who's famous and made it. So I know if it happens to him, it's going to happen to me and hundreds of other people. So,
Right. Was it
but
on
it's important.
Thursday? Was the room full?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Huh.
full room. He had notes on stage. He had like a
Yeah.
notepad.
I saw him at the Cellar once, and the McDougal room, and he closed very strong. But leading up to that, he's treating it like an open mic, and he
Yeah.
wasn't doing great, other than like a huge pop he got just for being famous. So yeah, that's
No, Mark, he
interesting.
didn't get a single laugh. I'm telling you, for 45 minutes. And,
Wow.
and people, I think it's easier when you're famous. Some people say it's harder, but I think people just want to know that they paid money to come see a famous person. Like they just want to have a good time.
Yeah.
They did not have a good time. And and then Saturday rolled around, and all I could think was like, the Thursday people needed to come to this show because this
Yeah.
one was insane. And he worked it
Did
out.
Is Zany's pretty cool about letting comics sneak in the back, or were you paying for all these tickets, or how did
I'm
that
not
work?
sure how they are now, but the manager really liked me and respected that I was hustling. And I talked with him and said, I'm a small town kid. I'm from New Hampshire and I live here now. And we didn't have, I mean, back when I was in New Hampshire, we had one comedy club that I don't think anyone knew existed. It was in a hotel.
Yeah,
And now there's like 3 or 4 or something, but I know, huge jump. But back then I had no compass on what comedy was like. So
sure,
he respected that I wanted to come learn and he just let me sit in the back. But now I don't know how. I'm sure with the pandemic that's all changed, or I don't know if it's changed or not, but
sure.
some people
Uh,
let you watch, some people don't.
yeah. What got you to move to New York?
I had a family member who was moving out of the apartment. We had a rent stabilized apartment in the family.
Nice.
And she called me and said, hey, I'm going to move. If you want to take the apartment, I'll by all means, but otherwise it's going to go back on the market and we're going to lose it in the family. And so I was like, I know I'm not ready to move to New York, but if I'm going to end up living there at some point, maybe I should just take the rent stabilized apartment. So I ended up moving. And then 9 months later, COVID happened and had to move back home. So we don't
Oh,
have the apartment anymore. But
brutal.
yeah, but it was, or maybe it was like 11 months or something, but
Yeah.
it was sad. It was my aunt. So we had a lot of memories growing up going there like every month because it's only a 4-hour drive from New Hampshire
Yeah.
and I miss it. But it was a good move. New York. You see the best of the best, and you just realize, oh, I'm going hard, but I gotta step it up.
Yeah. There's some very talented comedians. Were you paying for mics in New
Yep.
York?
Oh, I was paying for mics in cash. I was
Yeah.
working at a bar, took all the tip money, and just put $15 aside. 3 open mics a night I would do, and you know, people say in New York, you can get so much stage time. They don't tell you it's not good stage time. And the people that get good stage time already got a lot of it and are really good. So
Yeah.
it was a huge wake up call, and things were actually starting to go a little well toward the right before I was moving. I was actually going to do some work for a couple different clubs that were around, and I started getting my feet in, and then it all got swept from under us when
Bummer.
everyone died.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it could have been worse, I guess.
yeah, bigger things at that point than comedy,
Yeah.
but
Uh, were you going to big name clubs to watch uh, more famous comedians in New York as well, or were you kind of done with that part of your journey?
I think I didn't want to watch anyone because I didn't want anyone to rub off on me then,
Okay.
but I did go to the Comedy Cellar a couple times, and you have to pay for those tickets. They didn't let you
Yeah.
watch, but I did go there a couple times, and then I went to Greenwich Village a
Okay.
bunch,
Nice.
and it was cool. You see a lot of different styles. You see, and ultimately, it comes down to people just being themselves and being confident about it.
Yeah. Did you see anybody that really kind of blew your mind in New York?
Yeah, I've seen a couple people. Like I got Godfrey was
Oh man.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's so
he
good.
lit the room up. I'm trying to think who. I mean, Andrew Schultz I saw once. Dave
Yeah.
Attell I saw at a late show, and he he's
So funny.
unreal. And then you just see a bunch of people you don't even remember their names, but you're like, oh, they're good. They're talking
Yeah.
about things that matter, and they're making it funny, and they'll never be mainstream, but they're really good comics.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you so far in this journey, have you run any shows yourself?
Yeah, I during COVID, me and a friend Connor Kufia Chain up in New Hampshire, we did social distance comedy shows during the pandemic where we had a traveling sound system and did it outside at people's houses and had them set up chairs 6 feet apart wearing masks. We
Okay.
did like 75 of those shows. And then when that kind of started to fizzle out a bit, I mean, it's called
Would you
curbside
get
comedy.
comics from Boston, or like are there enough comics in New Hampshire to
We just did it, me and him.
Oh,
We were like, hey, this is a huge advantage that we have. Everyone else is taking comedy off, but we found like a safe way to do it. It's
so
called
you
curbside comedy, by the way,
okay?
and it
You
still
mean
exists.
you mean the two of you wore the lineup?
The two of us were the lineup. We would alternate who would host the show. It was just us doing. We did 20 minutes each, and then we did a Q&A session at the end,
Okay.
and it filled an hour of time. And
But
the bar was so low. I mean, no one had
yeah,
anything. They had Netflix.
how big an audience would you get? Like, how many chairs did you have?
Well, we had rules that we had to follow in the beginning. There was like guidelines of how many people could be there. So like at first we had 8, and it was
Oh,
like 6, 8, and then it slowly got to 10 and 12.
okay.
And then we had ironed out some of the material. So even though we were filling time, we had a good 7 minutes out of the 20, I would say.
Yeah.
And the bar was low because there was no entertainment. So we would just go around. We had people spread word, tell neighbors and stuff. We had a couple shows where there was like whole neighborhoods, like 150 people.
Huh.
And it was good. It was a huge wake up call, because some of the jokes I would do in New York, you can't go into people's houses and do when you're at their house,
Yeah.
So it was a good learning experience. And then from there, again, these are all one-off shows. It wasn't ever like a recurring or a monthly or anything like that. They were all one-offs. And if people wanted us to come back, we'd come back. And then from there, we did a couple shows at this place called Newport Brewery. We did 3 or 4 shows there, and we sold out every show. And that was like probably once every 2 months, once every 3 months. And then things started to change. I moved to Tampa. He moved to Hawaii, and now he's in New York again.
Okay, cool. Now, so how did you end up in Tampa?
I went to Tampa because my dad's fiance was from St. Pete,
Okay.
and I had felt I was making good progress, and I wanted to move somewhere where I could still perform. And everyone was moving.
Sorry,
Yeah.
when you were in New Hampshire, were you in like a big city or close to Boston, or were you in like the sticks?
I was in Bedford, New Hampshire. I was in my dad's apartment. Yeah, you don't even know where that is.
Yeah.
No one does.
Okay.
It's by the airport, Manchester. So if you don't know that, I can't help. But
Okay.
we were there, and basically it was just there was nothing. It was just we had to perform or nothing.
Yeah.
So
How
we
far
figured
was
it
it to
out.
Boston?
An hour and some change.
Okay.
But Boston was closed at the time. We couldn't do
Yeah,
anything in Boston.
got it.
So
you moved during the pandemic, basically, or the tail end.
yeah, I was there from March, like the end of March 2020 until December 2020. And during that time, I was also starting to go back to New York, back and forth, when it started to get a little bit more lenient.
Okay.
And then December 10th, 2020, I moved to Tampa.
Okay. And it was
So
wide
I
open.
got, yeah, it was open, and everyone was moving to Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to go where everyone's going. I want to go. I've already gone through the trenches in Chicago and New York. Like, I need to get good stage timing and get better. So I moved to Tampa because it was open, and people were saying online that there were some good clubs there. I had never been.
Like a
I just
smart
moved.
move, but did that work out well?
Yeah, it's worked out. I got a lot of stage time, got a lot better here, and met some really good people. And I do these street interviews with a friend, Nate Roscoe, and I met him down here.
Okay.
He was 19, or he was 18 at the time, maybe 19, but he got the internet. He understands the internet. So it was good to meet someone like him and help him show me the ropes.
Where, what's that called, and where is it distributed?
It's on my social medias at the Trevor Glassman. We just kind of do them for content. We haven't put a name on it yet.
Okay.
We have a couple names, and we're working on some of the branding for it, but it hasn't popped off yet. We're probably in this next year.
Is it on like your YouTube or your Snapchat, or I don't know.
Yeah, YouTube,
Okay.
Instagram, and TikTok at the Trevor Glassman.
The Trevor Glassman.
Yeah.
YouTube. Check out.
I just asked.
What's your
stupid
favorite? What's
questions.
your favorite interview if somebody's looking for a good episode, good taste?
Let me think here. There's one guy where I asked, "What's a celebrity you want to fight?" And he said James Corden, but he called him James Corbin, and he goes on this huge rant. And I didn't know that guy could be hated by anybody. So I thought that was funny,
hilarious. Holy cow.
Yeah, I just asked the dumbest questions I can think of. So
okay, so you've been in some major comedy cities, Chicago, New York, and now you go to Tampa, which, no shade on Tampa, isn't really New York, Chicago. It's also pandemic time, so maybe that throws things off. What's the comedy scene like? Like, can you go to a mic every night of the week? There are clubs. Kind of lay that out.
Yeah, there's I would say there's like two kind of ways you can take it. Tampa itself, I'd say, is very developmental. There's a lot of stage time. You can go on at a mic every single week. They got shows, Tuesday through Sunday, pretty much. We got a good club, Sunshine City Comedy Club, that's very encouraging to comedians that are developing. So that's good. And then we have bigger clubs like Side Splitters and the Tampa Funny Bone. Now it was the Improv, but now it's the Tampa Funny Bone.
Wow.
And those are the big boys come through there.
Okay.
So it's good if you want to get good. People are encouraging. The Tampa scene has comics that they want to get better. They're hungry and hustle. People are nice, and I think it's a great place for people that are just wanting to get better. If you want to have a giant career, there's still a lot of stage time in Florida as a whole, but getting out of Florida, it takes like 6 hours driving. So
is like Atlanta the biggest market that's nearby?
Yeah, Atlanta's like 8 hours away.
Okay.
And you're in Florida, you drive 8 hours just to get to the next state, or you drive 6 to Alabama, maybe 7 where Huntsville is, or those other clubs are. So if you're in Florida, you're in Florida. And
How do you move up or get on the radar at the Funny Bone or Side Splitters? Is there like a ladder, a program in place?
So at Side Splitters, I know you either show up to the mic and introduce yourself, and he'll watch your set. And
what night of the week is that?
Sunday.
Sunday night. Okay.
And if he likes you, he'll give you some chances to prove that you could be good in front of an audience, and then they kind of work your way up from there. And the Improv is more selective. I think now that they're Funny Bone, they probably get booked through the Funny Bone system. So not a lot of local guys work the Tampa Funny Bone. It's usually headliner and bringing people.
Yep. Yeah. Have you run any shows in Tampa?
Yes, I've ran some one-nighters. Nothing. Although I'm working on getting a monthly right now. I have to go meet this guy on Saturday to figure out the dates and stuff.
Okay.
But I had actually in St. Pete, I tried to run one show at this place, and it was the worst experience I've ever had. I've ran probably like 200 or 300 shows, all one night shows, never anything recurring, just because I didn't want to have to deal with the marketing of it and being responsible for getting people in on a day-to-day basis. But it was a train wreck, to say the least. But there's a lot of people that run recurring shows in St. Pete and Tampa that are awesome. So definitely learned a lot about producing in the Florida area.
Yeah. Tell us some of the pitfalls of producing.
Well, I met with them I met with this one place in St. Pete. I don't want to say it for slander reasons, but they royally kind of screwed me. I have a plan when it comes to these shows where my people are going to market, but we're not Dave Chappelle. We're not going to draw a full sold out crowd. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. Right. Yeah. So it's a 50-50 marketing deal that I have with them. And they didn't do a single thing. And we had like 4 or 5 weeks out of planning. They had all these giant events at these spaces, All we ask is to hang up a poster and QR code around and have the bartenders just tell people about it. We get there on the day of the show. There's no ticket sales. And we're like, what's going on? They didn't put a single thing around. The bartenders didn't even know we were having a show.
Oh, geez.
And the woman that we met with, we found out was on Oxycontin because she had surgery the day before and decided to have a meeting with us, and apparently didn't remember that we had any recollection of this talks. We had 4 emails back and forth. And then we're like, we're supposed to have a show here. And she's like, oh yeah, you guys can still do the show in 2 hours. I'm like, okay. So me and my friend barked on the street, got 10 people to come through.
Okay.
We had a 10-person show upstairs. And the woman was like, yeah, that was great. We don't know if we're going to do this again. I was like, you didn't know you were doing it in the first place. So that's fine with me. And I will never do a deal with someone post-surgery ever again.
Yeah. Oh,
unless they can touch their nose and say the alphabet backwards or something.
Yeah. Oh,
whatever you do.
Welcome to Florida.
So just say a little prayer for me that hopefully the monthly show I'm going to have here goes swimmingly and that,
is that in Tampa?
To do well. It's in St. Pete, so just a little bit south, but Tampa Bay area.
Okay, right on.
Yeah.
This new show, are you going to bring equipment, or is it like a venue that already has like stage, lights, sound?
I think they have lights. I'm just going to bring the equipment and I'm going there to meet, but they've done some shows there already. They just want to add more, and the people that they do shows with don't want to do a second show there.
Okay.
But I got the A-OK from them.
Nice.
They're a company that runs shows, so I don't want to say who, but
yeah,
they gave me the A-OK.
Do you work for that company? Is that one reason, or is it just like band of brothers don't want to step on toes of other comics?
Well, I tell them I don't want to step on any toes, and I tell the venue if they already have a show, they should just do a second show with the people they're already doing it with.
Yeah.
But they said that they already tried to do that.
Yep.
And I said, okay, well, I'll tell these people the situation. I'm not going to say that we're going to have a show yet. Yep. I went about it the complete right way. I got it in writing that how they felt about it. And they were like, yeah, this is totally fine just for our marketing. We only want to keep it monthly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, we'll see how this goes, because I've never ran a monthly before. So we'll see how well the venue is. So I'm going there Saturday to figure out the details.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Any crazy?
Make sure I give you a spot when it gets.
All right. I'll come through. I'll be back in Florida at some point.
Bless you.
Excuse me. Anybody, any road work? Any good stories getting out on the road?
Yeah. I try to go every month when I can. And I just got back from LA. I've gone to this past year. I've gone all around Florida, random towns, done RV parks, done little hotel gigs, so many random shows. I went to this place in Georgia called Cumming, Georgia, and they had a show there, and I was wearing a Dragon Ball Z shirt, which I like in these bar gigs. I'm like, I want to just kind of seem not too prissy, just kind of casual, right?
Yeah.
This woman offered me $600 for my shirt after the show because she thought her son would love it. And she said during my whole set, she was looking on Amazon and looking on Marshalls to see if she could get it. And it's a rare shirt, so I didn't even know that people would know that. She looked for it. I'm like, thanks for paying attention, by the way. She looks through everything. She can't find it. And she offers me $600, and I said no.
Because it's worth more than that? Or
I don't know. I can't find a single shirt like it. So I'm just going to keep it. And
unbelievable.
If she gave me $600, someone will give me more. So
yeah. Wow. I mean, that could have been the best paying comedy gig you ever had.
I know that could have been good. And I'm trying to think. I just did these. It's a little bit different. I was just in San Antonio. I do these Bad Santa shows every year through a performing company. Okay. And they hired me to essentially do naughty crowd work and roasting.
Okay.
And
you wear a Santa suit?
I wear a Santa suit. I get beer thrown on me to start the show. It's like insane. But there was I don't want to say.
Do you own the suit, or does the company mail it to you?
No, they buy it. It gets destroyed. So by the end of the week, I smell like Bud Light. and candy canes, and it's horrible. But we did 9 shows in 4 days, and there was there were 2 criminals on the run that came to the show. And he told me after the show he was wanted in Florida for doing burglaries in Targets and Walmarts. I can't say his name because I don't know if he's in the mob,
Right.
but I showed up. I was like, look at this guy, showing them the Google pages, and they're like, that was him. So you just never know who's going to be in the crowd.
That's wild. I mean, I feel like we buried the lead here. I should have asked you in the beginning, like, how do you make money in comedy? I'm assuming that pay is decent.
That was a good gig, good paying gig. The money that you're gonna make in comedy, if you're not famous, is gonna be through selling tickets and producing shows. And I just try to get as many shows as I can and see how that totals out. And if I have a spurt where I'm not getting responses on getting on shows, I'll just hit up venues and try to set my own thing up and sell the tickets directly.
Okay.
My deal with the venues is they keep the drink sales, I keep the ticket sales.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Did you give us an example, like a successful show you did like that, like how you found the venue, how you got there? Or what
I just went online and Googled best breweries in Florida and looked at the pictures, and some of them are far away, so I don't have time to visit them. I just have to call and ask, hey, have you guys ever done a comedy show here, or would you like to? And I did one in Hudson, Florida, which is about an hour north of Tampa. But the first show we had, we sold 60 tickets.
Wow.
And it
like
was
$10 a piece or what?
20.
20. Holy cow.
And
Eventbrite?
if they don't have entertainment in their area, I'm going to upcharge it because they don't have nothing. So I did it through my friend's ticketing platform, Laughs on the Go.
Okay.
And he gives me my ticket fee. He gets his service fee, and it's good business that was a good show. And I featured it, paid a headliner $150 and gave him, like this. I was like, this is all I could afford, because at the time it was only 20 tickets sold. So I'm like, I didn't make too much. But then we had 40 coming at the door. So I was like, that's sweet. I'll take that.
That's incredible.
But if you're doing, 2 of those a week, it's possible. It's hard work, but you're sitting pretty.
Yeah, we got to wrap up. Something I've noticed recently is the way to make money and be successful, really in anything in life, but it definitely applies to comedy, is do things other people aren't willing to do.
Yeah.
There's a 100%. Lot in comedy that's very easy and popular and fun, but cold calling breweries and taking that financial risk and driving and promising the headliner money, like you're narrowing how many people are willing to do that.
Yeah, it's all an investment, and it's building something. Whereas if you're just constantly just slinging gigs, you're not really in control. You're at the whim of people saying yes. So I like to have both,
you're betting on yourself. You're making your own path. That's amazing. What a great way to end this episode and to start 2024. Happy New Year, everybody. Trevor, where can people find you online?
At the Trevor Glassman. That's my handle for all platforms: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Venmo, everything.
Okay. So, awesome. Check out his Man on the Street interviews. Find him in small towns around Florida and the Southeast, and dressed up like a naughty Santa in a state near you, possibly in 2024. Thanks for your time, Trevor. Stick around for a second. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you, everybody.